Welcome back to the KTLW Quaestor Officer Training. In this module, we will be discussing reporting and taxes. We will look at common reports, such as the balance sheet and an income statement, and look at tax resources available to you through Sigma Chi.
Financial reporting is defined as the disclosure of financial results and related information. Let's take a look at some basic financial reports that you will utilize as the financial manager of your chapter. The first of those financial reports is the balance sheet. The balance sheet is a statement of the assets, liabilities, and equity of the chapter. Let's take a look at an example of a balance sheet I have downloaded from Greekbill into Microsoft Excel. Here at the top of the report, you can see it identifies it as a balance sheet as of 6/30/2020. If you remember from a previous module, we talked about the accounting equation, which was assets equals liability plus equity. The two sections of our balance sheet, as you can see, are assets and liabilities and equity, which if we take a look at their totals real quick, our total current assets are $19,330, and our total liabilities and equity is also $19,330, so they are in fact equal. Let's break these down a little bit. Let's take a look at our current assets, which includes our bank accounts, which includes our savings account, and our main checking. Those balances are $5,000 and $5,530 respectively, for a total of $10,530. We also have another current asset in accounts receivable, which is currently $8,800. This undeposited funds Greekbill would represent money that was transferred into Greekbill but has not yet been transferred into our bank accounts. Our total current assets are $19,330. Now let's take a look at our liabilities and equity. Under liabilities, we have current liabilities, which includes accounts payable. Now you may remember, Greekbill does not have a module to track accounts payable. So what I've done is I've added in the $3,610 from our accounts payable register from our budget builder template, because typically accounts payable would be part of a balance sheet. We also have this other liabilities of the $300 housing deposit. I told you at some point we'd get to the point where we talk about equity. Here you can see equity on our balance sheet. We have an opening balance equity of $5,000, which would represent our savings account. And here we have retained earnings, which is the profits of a company from its inception to the current date. So it's basically an aggregate of the net income over time. That's $5,190. And here you can see current net income of $5,230 for a total equity of $15,420, which added into our liabilities is going to be $19,330, which equals our current assets of $19,330 as well. By using the balance sheet, you have the ability to compare your assets and your liabilities at any given point in time. Next, we'll take a look at the income statement, which is the statement of revenue and expenses of the chapter. Let's take a look at a profit and loss report that I've downloaded from Greekbill into Microsoft Excel. Here you can see the report is identified as a profit and loss report, also known as a P&L report, also known as an income statement. On the far right, you can see the date range, which the date from date will be the start of your fiscal year to the current date. The P&L report or income statement is broken down into two sections. The first section is income. Here you can see all of our income accounts with their sub-accounts and the total for each account, which adds up to our total income of $57,835. If we scroll down, we'll see the second part of our report, which is our expenses. And here you can see our expense accounts, their subaccounts, the total for each account. If we scroll down to the bottom, we can see we have a total expense of $52,605. As I mentioned, the point of the income statement is to compare income to expenses to calculate net operating income. So as we can see, our income total of $57,835 minus our total expenses of $52,605 gives us a net operating income of $5,230. And as a final note, if you recall from the balance sheet example, our equity section where we had net operating income on the balance sheet, it does in fact equal the $5,230 that we see here from the P&L report. And last, we'll take a look at a statement of cash flows, which summarizes the amount of cash entering and leaving the chapter for the current period. Our practice software does not produce a statement of cash flows, so we're going to look at a very basic example of what a statement of cash flows looks like. Before we do, though, I want to point out that in the previous module, we talked about cash flow, but we were talking about cash flow in relation to our budget amounts and our actual amounts as they related to income and expenses. The statement of cash flows is going to summarize the amount of cash entering and leaving the chapter for the current period, and it is not a comparison of budget versus actual. I thought it was important to clarify that before we continue. So let's take a look at a couple of items that would be on the statement of cash flows. The statement of cash flows begins with our net income, which is $5,230. On the statement of cash flows, we then add back the increase in accounts payable, because if we want to look at the amount of money entering and leaving the chapter for the current period, accounts payable are monies that we owe, but we have not yet paid the balances of those invoices. So we add back the increase in accounts payable for the current period. We then subtract the increase in accounts receivable for the current period. Again, we're looking at the cash entering and leaving the chapter for the current period. As it relates to accounts receivable, we have not yet collected that cash. So we have to remove that accounts receivable balance for the current period. And here you can see, if we want to look at the cash entering and leaving the chapter for the current period, which is our net income, plus the increase in our accounts payable, minus the increase in our accounts receivable, it leaves us with a net cash from operations for the current period of only $40. Now there are two other components to a typical statement of cash flows, and those include the cash flow from investing and a cash flow from financing, which for most chapters, if not all, will not be relevant. So from a statement of cash flows, and I know this is a very basic example, we have our net income plus our increase in accounts payable minus our increase in accounts receivable to give us the first component of the statement, which is net cash from operations, which is $40. And our cash flow from investing and cash flow from financing are not items that a typical chapter is going to experience. So the statement of cash flows in this example produces a net increase in cash and cash equivalents for the current period of $40. As it pertains to the role of Quaestor, you will spend more time using your income statement and your balance sheet than you will a statement of cash flows if you use statement of cash flows at all. I do want to stress, though, from our previous module, it is important as Quaestor to make sure that you're concerned with cash flow, the amount of money moving into and out of the chapter, and ensuring that you have enough money for operations. Utilize the chapter's financial reports to make assessments of the chapter's financial health for selected periods of time and to present the chapter's financial status to the financial committee, the chapter, or the general fraternity when required. With regard to tax reporting, Team Quaestor recommends that chapters budget for and procure professional tax services for federal tax exemption reinstatement if necessary, and for the filing of annual tax reports. Should a chapter choose to file its own reinstatement or file its own tax reports and would like to find resources to do so, you can navigate to sigmachi.org, select More from the menu, then Resources, and Leadership Resources. From the Leadership Resources page, you can navigate down to Chapter Officers, select Quaestor, and from the Quaestor Resources menu, you can select the Tax Exemption Guide. From there, you can download a Federal Tax Exemption Reinstatement Guide, which includes information such as an overview on how to file for your federal tax exemption reinstatement, an overview of what type of form your chapter should use, whether IRS Form 990N, IRS Form 990EZ, IRS Form 990, or for Canadian chapters, Form T1044. There's also additional resources such as the number for irs.gov for information on how to file for nonprofits. Due to the complexity of filing taxes, we will not cover tax filing in this learning module. As previously stated, it is recommended that you seek professional services for your tax filing needs. As a final note, each chapter is an individual tax entity, and it is the responsibility of each chapter to ensure tax filings are performed properly and on time.
This concludes the module on reporting and taxes. For more information regarding these topics, check out the online resources available through sigmachi.org, your chapter officer SharePoint files, or from your own chapter records if available. Remember to take part in the online discussion related to this officer training module with your facilitator and the members of your Quaestor group.